I'm going to start with just touching on what are currently the conventional forms of disposition that are available to people before we get to speaking specifically about water cremation. So with flame cremation, that is currently the most popular form of cremation in this country. Modern cremation came in the 1860s in Italy. That was where we had the first flame crematory. They are typically today gas powered, and they are form. It is a form of disposition that causes greenhouse gases to be emitted into the atmosphere, and it takes non-renewable resources in order for a flame cremation to happen. And yet it's seen as a very convenient form of disposition for people, more affordable and simple. And yet when it first came in, it was not at all popular, and there was a lot of questioning about this idea of burning people. People were shocked at that notion, and it harked back a little bit to times when we burned people at the stake, and it was something that was very unpalatable. So it took a while to really gain a foothold, and that is not just in the United States, but in Europe too. It wasn't an automatic form of disposition that was popular, and yet now it is the most popular, and as I said, partly because it's seen as convenient, but there are certainly some environmental repercussions to it, which not everybody is maybe thinking of at the time. Burial is something that also has environmental repercussions if we're really looking at conventional burial, which doesn't simply mean putting a body into the earth and allowing that body to return and enrich the soil. It involves a lot of paraphernalia. It involves often having a vault, a covering over the grave. Certainly conventional cemeteries in modern times, they require this grave covering so that they can then take care of the landscaping, and a lawnmower can go over the grave. And so you're required to have this plastic or fiberglass or cement covering to the grave. And there is potentially an embalmed body that's going into the earth as well, which is a process that is really a phenomenon of North America, I have to say. As someone who comes from England, where it was introduced by American funeral homes, it's not really something that has quite the appeal that it has here. And that does involve putting chemicals into the body to temporarily preserve it. And so with a conventional burial, you may have a body going in with formaldehyde and other chemicals that are carcinogenic into the earth, along with this vault, this covering, and then the landscaping may not be particularly low resource usage and involve pesticides and fertilizers, etc. And so just looking at those two conventional forms of disposition, we absolutely see that they leave a carbon footprint that is perhaps bigger than most people think. So I think this is you, Seth.
Yeah. So the points that Karen just brought up about flame cremation and conventional burial are points that we're making so that we can compare water cremation. The fact is that flame cremation represents the predominant form of disposition that is chosen in the United States at about 70% right now. And that burial represents the majority of the remainder of the dispositions, and that water cremation is an emerging technology. And so the reason that we wanted to point out the consumptive nature of flame cremation and also of burial is because that's the reason why we're so gung-ho about water cremation. It's the reason that we're so excited to bring um, this offering to Colorado. And so by comparison, alkaline hydrolysis is it's regulated by the Cremation Association of North America as a form of cremation. And so because it is a process that reduces a human body to remains that can be returned to a family. And so what that means is that in about the same time as a flame cremation, about 3 to 4 hours, a body is placed into a vessel, and about 12 gallons of water is added to that vessel. And then over a period of about 4 hours, and with a gentle rocking motion, and the addition of a small amount of alkali, which is to say a high pH chemical, which is plant derived, is added to the chamber as well. And so the resulting process is a cremation, which is to say the body has become bones, which we're able to return to a family with an urn for scattering or memorialization. And then the other product which remains in the chamber is the liquid remains. And through this process, the physical form of our body is a liquid, becomes a liquid, which is primarily nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium, with multiple other trace elements. The remaining liquid in the chamber, which through our process results in about 25 to 30 gallons of liquid remaining, is in fact a very bioavailable stimulant, and meaning that it contains the building blocks of life in a sterile form, which can be diluted and reapplied to the earth for uptake by plant life. So the process consumes a very small amount of energy. So just really briefly, Karen mentioned that the first flame cremation process was made publicly available in Italy in 1869. And then what I want to tell you is that it took 100 years of flame cremation being in practice before it was really even making much of a dent in any market and being consumed widely. It wasn't until 1970 that flame cremation represented 5% of the choices that people made for disposition. So 5% of the time we were selecting flame cremation, and 95% of the time burial. And now, as of 2020, I told you that that number is 70% that people are selecting flame cremation. So in the last 50 years, you can see the acceptance of this new form of disposition. Alkaline hydrolysis has actually been around for over 100 years as well, was invented by a farmer as a means of disposition of livestock upon their death, and as a way to use their bodies as a benefit to the farmland. And so we anticipate a further growing in people's acceptance and desire for this form of disposition. Go ahead, Karen.
Yeah, don't you like the big cows in this lovely old painting?
That's not actually Amos Hobson. That's a replica.
No, it's not Amos Hobson, and some mega cows there that would have taken quite a lot of work to to dispose of. Anyway, I wanted to just mention that we had our first water cremation client in 2019. And I'm not going to name her, but she is indelibly etched in our memory as somebody who said a really big yes to water cremation. We had met with her to talk about her after death wishes, and she was on hospice at that point, lived rurally, had a mountain home, and we had been called to visit her because she had an interest in green burial on her own land. And so Seth and I went to meet her and were very tickled by her lovely, salty, sparkling self, really very engaged person, really wanting to do something that she felt right about, that would connect her to her land. And we were talking about the logistics of green burial on private land, which, you know, is something that you can do depending where you live and the zoning. And it was clear to us that it was going to be something of a challenge because of the water that was on the land, the streams nearby, the rocks, and just quite a few impediments to allowing her to return to the earth. And when we sat down with her, she said to us very, very emphatically, "I just want to be compost," having told us that she wanted green burial. And when we heard that she wanted to be compost, we both looked at each other and knew that perhaps this was a moment where we could introduce this option of water cremation. We had been waiting for the right person to be the first person in Colorado to have water cremation, and we just knew that it was going to be her. And so after her "I just want to be compost," we described what water cremation was, that in fact what happens with water cremation is what would happen if you buried a body and you had someone under the ground. The earth was transforming our material selves into this new substance that is going to enrich the earth, but it's going to take years. And water cremation is really the same process, but within a matter of hours, using water and alkaline compounds. And the transforming is so incredible that pathogens are neutralized, and we are turned into this fertilizer, this bionutrient. So when we described the process to her, and she was really all ears, her face just lit up. I mean, it was a strange moment to be with somebody who was facing their mortality, but really enlivened at the idea that, wow, their body could undergo this process, be reduced to this elemental state, and we actually could put her back on her land and have her nurture the soil without the green burial happening. And so she was our first person, and we fondly remember her, and Seth even fondly remembers her holding court like a queen and patting his bald head in this very queenly like manner. And she was cremated in August of 2019, and after her water cremation, there was a ceremony to walk in a spiral and return her to the land. So they ceremonialized, her friends ceremonialized her returning to the earth as well. Seth.
Yes. So, in trying to decide how to talk with you about water cremation, and realizing that we were going to have a mixture of people from potentially friends of ours who already know about the natural funeral, to people who are curious about water cremation, even to other funeral and death care professionals. And so we thought the great way that we wanted to share this with you was the way that people have touched us in making this choice to have water cremation and why it was important to them. And so, yeah, from that very first client in August of 2019, who uh, Karen and I had decided that it would be really special for the first client to work with someone who actually selected this process for themselves. So it wasn't left, it wasn't even a decision of their estate or their loved ones, but this person made that decision themselves. And then we've gotten to share this story with many other families, and we want to talk with you about a couple of those briefly today. And in mentioning these families' names, these are families who we've got the permission from them to talk about their loved ones. Even some of their loved ones could be on this call right now. But Doug Zeiker was an amazing man who we didn't get to meet, but we met his beloved partner and wife, Heidi, who told us of Doug's sudden death in doing what he loved, which was being in the outdoors, and then following an outdoor adventure through Rocky Mountain National Park, where he'd ridden his motorcycle all day. In the afternoon, an accident caused his death. And when Heidi sat down and spoke with us about Doug and what was important to him, she said, well, he's a simple man who loved the outdoors, and he was, as a young man, a naval sailor. And she began to tell of his love for gardening and this ornate Zen pathway that he had built through his backyard. And from scratch, took blank land and created something that was absolutely gorgeous. And then we described this process to Heidi, and she knew it was a good fit for the way that Doug had lived his life and a good way to honor him. And so I remember the day that I got to bring a token amount of the biostimulant that Heidi had asked for us to deliver to her. And we walked through the pathway in the garden where Doug would be forever memorialized and would, in fact, give back his own life into the garden that he had created. Another very special family that came to us was the family of Graham Abear, who earlier this year, as a very young man, in one of our winter spells where it created some unpredictable conditions, Graham died suddenly by falling into a frozen lake. And he remained missing for approximately a month while his beloved family and community circled and searched for him. And when his body was recovered, we met with his mother, who had actually sought us out because of knowing of this offering, and knowing that that water was important to her son, and that this would be a very, very meaningful way for his life to continue. And Karen, would you speak a little bit to the Luna family?
Yes. And Sheila was somebody who also chose this form of disposition while she was still alive. It was something she had researched, and it very much spoke to her. She was an herbalist and was really very committed to having her body nourish rather than be a burden on the earth. When she died, she had cancer, and I did not have the honor of meeting her before she died, but I had the honor of being present with her family for a ritual with her body that we call Reverent Body Care. And Sheila chose water cremation really because she believed in this cycle of life, and very much wanted to do something good for the earth. with her physical remains. And her whole family I have subsequently talked to, and they've communicated just how meaningful it is for them to think that her body is now something that has been taken up again by Mother Earth. So she's yeah, one of our luminaries in the water cremation journey that we're on to bring this to other people.
This is our final slide, and we really want to allow you to ask us questions, because we want to understand your curiosity around water cremation. But we introduced ourselves as Seth and Karen from the Natural Funeral, and the fact of the matter is that we represent several organizations, because the public is responding so favorably to this offering that that we're wanting to make this more widely available to clients, and then also make this offering available to funeral homes throughout the state. So to that end, the Natural Funeral purchased the original provider that we worked with back in August of 2019 to begin to offer this service. So we purchased that provider and the system and the facility, and in so doing, we want to expand who has access to this. And so we are able to provide this directly to client families through our funeral home, which is the Natural Funeral. And then now the crematory that we purchased, we've called Alkaline Hydrolysis of Colorado. And in a similar energy of expansion, and in order to make this available to more clients in the larger metro area, we've opened up an office in downtown Denver that is called the Water Crematory. And the Water Crematory is a funeral home, but it only offers this particular form of disposition. So through the Natural Funeral, we continue to offer flame cremation as well as green burials, as well as water cremation. But through our funeral home in Denver, we only are offering water cremation. So we wanted to explain a little bit about the other arms that we're involved in, and how we are putting our actions behind what we feel is the next and really forward-looking and sustainable choice for disposition.
I just want to say thanks to everyone who has joined us, and we're looking forward to having you ask us questions and put us on the spot.